So, Rosa, not everything has to do with the United States, although we in the United States thinks everything does. Not everything has to do with Trump, although Trump thinks everything has to do with Trump. But this, as it happens, does reflect on the U.S. role, does reflect on Trump. Steve Witkoff has been very close to the Qataris. Half of the big peace deals that Trump says he's been involved with have involved the Qataris as intermediaries. The Qataris are the ones who offered Trump up the free airplane, and so to go at the Qataris is to go at Trump. Seems to suggest to me that Netanyahu doesn't sort of reckon Trump very highly, that Trump doesn't have much influence, that Witkoff doesn't have much influence. And I would add parenthetically that Putin, sending drones off that go and land at, end up in Poland is another sign that people are not taking Trump very seriously. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Interesting. I think there are actually two ways to read this. I mean, on the one hand, I think you're certainly correct that neither Putin nor Netanyahu has a lot of respect for Donald Trump. They're not scared of him. Trump got very upset a few months back when people were calling him a taco. For Trump always chickens out, but Trump does always chicken out, and they know it and they've seen it. They know that they can manipulate him. They know that his threats are unlikely to be serious for them. So I don't think that they feel frightened of doing something that might make him mad, which is ironic given that the entire Republican leadership in the United States is obviously terrified of Donald Trump. But so that I agree with. So one way to read this is both about lack of personal respect for Trump, and lack of respect or interest in American power, lack of fear of consequences of pissing off the Americans. I think and I don't think that's wrong, but I think that there's also a quite different way to read this, which is not actually inconsistent with the first, even though it might seem inconsistent, which is that this is the world that the United States government created, that we're now living in, right? I mean, we after many years in the sort of post World War II period of building legal institutions designed to constrain power by rules, by law. We invested very heavily in that. And then after 9/11, we started demolishing the very legal and institutional order that we helped build up. There is a straight line, I think, from the George W. Bush administration's use of drone strikes, the Obama administration's use of drone strikes, the Biden administration's use of drone strikes, the Trump administration's attack last week on a Venezuelan boat that is said to have had supposed members of a terrorist organization who were involved in drug smuggling, the Russian drones entering Polish airspace, and the Israeli attack in Doha. That we have created and put out there at a period when we were the sole superpower. We put out a set of legal and policy arguments in which we said to the world, we get to kill anybody anywhere, including inside the borders of other sovereign countries. And we don't have to tell you why. When we assert that they were lawful targets under the laws of armed conflict, because we have classified secret intelligence that says so, but we don't have to share that intelligence with you. We don't have to have any kind of judicial review for that. And it's totally fine. It's not extrajudicial murder. This is lawful targeting under the laws of armed conflict. We said that. We essentially handed to every country in the world that wanted to go and engage in military strikes or assassinations beyond their borders, we essentially handed them a legal argument, which puts us in a position of when we say, well, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that. That was not a country with which you were at war, and don't do this. It's escalatory or it's lawless. Well, they say, well, wait a second, you're doing the same thing. And they're right. So this is a world in which, ironically, one view of it is that American influence has waned. The other is that, unfortunately, American influence has been so great that we have now created a world that we worked for 50 odd years to prevent from coming into creation. But here it is.
That's a very good and thoughtful analysis. We have, 12, 15 minutes left here, so I'd love to go around to each of you a couple times so we can keep the answers fairly crisp. That would be helpful. Uh, Shibley, I want to go back to something implicit in what you were saying, which is I just don't know who to believe here. I don't know, did the Israelis not consult with the US? 2 days before this thing, Trump said either Hamas hands over these things or there will be consequences in a social media tweet. Um, Very often, when the Israelis do something that the Gulf states are supposed to publicly react negatively to, behind the scenes, there's been a little bit of a whisper and like, okay, you do this and we'll complain, and then life will continue. And you've been following this part of the world for a long time. Do you think the Gulf states are really pissed off? Do you think Trump was really only informed at the last minute by the US military, which is the story?
Number one, yes, I think the Gulf states are pissed off, are really pissed off. It's not they have no love for Hamas. Okay, so let's be clear. Certainly not the UAE and not the Saudis. They don't have love for Hamas, but I think they've assumed that the U.S. is there protecting them. That's why they're hosting. That's why they're giving the U.S. so much financially. That's why they're hosting American bases. That they are essentially there for that reason, that no one would mess with them. The image that they cultivate is that they're safe. They safe for the people, they safe for the visitors. That's the image that they're doing, and it rubs on all of them. It's not just Qatar. That's why the Saudis today were furious. MBS said, this is unacceptable. This reflects on all of us. They are a member of the GCC, and they will have a relationship. So yes, they are pissed, no question in my mind. With Trump, I think that if our reporter, if we want to buy the narrative that they have, I say, what's wrong with you? First of all, how could you accept that Israel would not let you know on something that is a vital interest to you, as something that going against a country that you're protecting, using American technology, cutting edge technology that was provided to Israel for you, and that you're expected to protect Israel at the UN after Israel has violated international law in doing so. What's wrong with you? How could you accept that you're not notified until a few minutes before? Something is really crazy here. But secondarily, what the hell are our forces doing there? I mean, we have thousands of troops, the most cutting edge technology, central command, bases in the region, airplane flying, AWACS flying, and we don't detect. It takes roughly 3 hours to fly from Israel to Qatar for an airplane to get there. We didn't detect that. We didn't know it. Nobody was notified that this was coming. So to me, those are like crazy ideas. But I want to go back with this to something that Alon had said earlier about the craziness of this administration. It is even crazy compared to the first Trump administration. In the first Trump administration, of course, the president was, he showed some deference to some people around him. Every once in a while, he was feeling his way around. But we knew, who was making policy on the Middle East. It was Kushner. It was David Friedman, particularly on Israel-Palestine. Some of the people who influenced him in the campaign contribution world. We knew who was making policy, even if he wasn't making them. Right now, we don't know who's making policy because everybody shows so much deference to him. We have no idea, even in the, you say, okay, he's really kind of being influenced by Netanyahu. But yes, of course, he's being influenced by Netanyahu, but it's not necessarily always direct relationship. So who's Netanyahu going through? Who are the people who are filtering ideas? Who is the one who is really influencing him within his own camp? I have never seen anything like it because I'm at a loss. And as you know, I study American foreign policy. I've written about it. I even have a forthcoming co-authored book that includes a chapter on the first Trump administration. I interviewed many of his advisors in the first Trump administration, top White House advisors. I had a picture of how policy was being made in the first Trump administration. I have no idea who's doing what. If anybody had detected the Israeli attack, whether they would have gone to him or not. whether somebody may have given Israel a green light without even consulting with them, whether he was on the golf course and they didn't want to bother him. I have no idea. I mean, this is the madness that we find ourselves in right now.